Hey, I've got a doctor's appointment and programs this morning, so I won't be home till early afternoon. And I have to leave here in about a half an hour to make my doctor's appointment. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of cheating you on the time. I've been doing that lately. My only excuse is I've been tired and then I haven't had the day, you know, I've had to rush off somewhere. But we got in a good day yesterday. Uh, I think I can cover the material for today in 15 or 20 minutes. But if not, I will continue tomorrow. And then remember, Thursday begins our trip, and I have no idea what reception, internet, timing, I have no idea what things will be like for the 18th through the 22nd. I just don't know. So we'll just have to go with the flow. I may be talking to you from the road somewhere, like in the car. I don't have any idea what I'm going to be doing because I don't know how the time constraints and how the rules when we get there will work out. But I'm looking forward to it more than anything I have in my life. I thank God for the opportunity. And I thank you all for praying for me and for our team. As I said yesterday, I learned Sunday that there will be 9 of us all together staying at the warden's house right there on the campus. And we're going to split into 3 teams and we'll have a big schedule to cover. So I'm very excited about this trip. It's the kind of thing that somebody like me doesn't get invited to very often, because I'm old. And I say, well, Jimmy can't take it. Well, maybe I can't, but I get the opportunity to see if I can take it. Here we go. In chapter 6, we're talking about the first seals. Jesus has released the first 2 seals. And we've had the white horse, which is the false religion and false politics, and the charismatic leader who conquers the world with a bow and no arrows, and everybody follows after. And then he leads them into war. The second horse, the red horse, the horse of war. Now we're going to be at the third seal, which will represent famine in the world, and dearth, and drought, and loss of property, of food, of life. Famine always follows war. When you bomb people into the Middle Ages, there's nothing left for them to eat. There's no industry left. There's no transportation. There's no logistics. And people can starve in the ruins of a house when there's food 5 miles away and they have no way of getting there. And no way of getting the food if it were there. Because maybe they were on the wrong side. Maybe they were outlaws or enemies. Mass starvation always follows war, no matter where. Chapter 6, and I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the voice of the thunder, one of the 4 beasts saying, come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth to conquering and to conquer. He's imitating Christ in chapter 19 of Revelation, verse 11. He sat on a white horse. He was riding out of heaven. He's the King of kings, Lord of lords. Out of his mouth proceedeth a 2-edged sword, and on his vesture is dipped in blood. Verse 11, Revelation 19, and I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse. And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he should rule them with a rod of iron, and he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God. And he hath on his vesture, and on his thigh, a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So see, the first horse of the apocalypse imitates the return of the Messiah. And many people in the world are going to think that this conqueror on the white horse in Revelation chapter 6 at the first seal is the Messiah. And he'll be happy to let them think that, because he wants them to think that. But he is the one that we would call the first beast, the Antichrist. Powered by Satan himself. It'll be the time of the reign of Satan upon the earth. The second seal, verse 3, and when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, Come and see. I'm being jiggle-footed. I'm tapping my foot. My grandpa said I was jiggle-footed because I never would be still. I was always restless. Jiggle-footed. And when he'd opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, Come and see. And there went out another horse that was red. The power was given unto him to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. Anytime you got a false Messiah, you're going to have war. Because just look at Hitler, Stalin, all the dictators, Nebuchadnezzar, Alexander the Great, Darius, Caesar, and all the Caesars. Every time you got a God in power, where men make a God out of a guy, you got war, because you got to see the way they work is you have to conquer other people and take what they got. That's how you pay everybody. And then here we go with famine for today. And when he had opened the third seal, when he who, the Lamb that was slain from the foundation of the world, the Lord Jesus Christ, when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. Let's see how this corresponds to the third beast. These are the 4 living creatures that anchor the throne of God, one on each corner of God's throne. And the first beast in verse 7 of chapter 4, the first beast was like a lion. We talked about that. He's imitating the lion of the tribe of Judah, this first, this man on the white horse with a bow and no arrows that he's coming to conquer and conquering and to conquer, and he's given a crown. And then the second beast was like a calf or an ox, a beast of burden. And I talked about how war always comes, and it's always the servant that fights the war. You know, the general sits up on the hill, or the king sits up on the hill, and the rabble get out there and fight it out. I love that in Braveheart, where Longshanks, the English king, they weren't doing very good, so he goes, Send in the Irish. Like, let's let the Irish get all killed off, because we're losing the battle anyway. Remember, it's always rich man's fight, poor man's war. There are no exceptions. The only exception in history would be the American Revolution. because the rich man also fought. At one point before the war, and maybe at the first of the war, George Washington was the richest man in the United States, at least as a property holder. He had bought vast tracts in Appalachia beyond the mountains. Even though he may never see them, he bought them and he owned them. And of course, he was a planter in Virginia with many slaves. The only exception to the rich man's war and the poor man's fight was the American Revolution. There are no other examples. Perhaps after conscription was ordered in the Union Army. But because they could pay, if you had $300 in cash or property, you could get out of going and send somebody in your place. But it's always rich men's war, poor men's fight. That's why the second beast, the beast of burden, the ox. And so there is a correlation there, as we discussed yesterday. But now we're in the third beast, the third seal, and the red horse comes forward, and he represents war. And the living creature, good morning, Steve. The living creature at the corner of God's throne, representing the third beast or living creature representing this. Let's see if there is a representation there. And the first two hold. The first beast was like a lion, the second beast like a calf, and the third had the face of a man. Oh, yes, it counts. Because he is the man on the white horse. He is the one who will bring war and famine to the earth. And Satan wants to destroy humankind. Satan doesn't want to save anybody. He wants to kill everybody. He comes not but to steal and to kill and destroy. Particularly here, it is Satan through this third rider is imitating the Lord giving bounty during the millennial kingdom when he has finally established his kingdom here on the earth. And so it's an imitation. So the man really does fit the man, the living creature represented by the face of the man at the four corners of the throne of God. Because this will be controlled by a man. We're building the system right now, the AI system, and everything that will follow and proceed from thence. We are building the system that the Antichrist will take over and use. He'll know where you are all the time. He'll know what you're thinking. He'll know what you're doing. He will control every purchase. You won't be able to buy or sell except that you have his number in your right hand or in your forehead. That's chapter 13, Revelation. Specifically here, when the famine is least on the earth, famine always follows the war. There are no exceptions. And when he opened the third seal, I heard, as Jesus opening the seals, he's taken the scroll from the Ancient of Days, from God the Father sitting on the throne. In heaven, chapter 4, chapter 5. Now we're in chapter 6. And he said, come and see. And I beheld, and there was a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. Now, just as the horses and the chariots in Zechariah 6 have some relation to this, in that they're horses and that they're black and white and red and grizzled or pale or gray, or what we might call a bay if you're a horse person. Bet my money on a bobtail nag. Somebody bet on the bay. He's not talking about Bay Rum or Montego Bay. No, it's talking about these horses in Zechariah 6, but they're chariots that are going throughout the earth. They're pulling chariots, and they're gathering information and intelligence for the Lord. And we assume these chariots are controlled by angelic beings of some kind. Somebody's driving these horses. So the only correlation, Wanda, so good to see you. God bless you, sister. I hope things are going well for you. The only corresponding factor is that the color of the horses. There's one horse and a rider here in Revelation for each of the first four seals, the four horsemen of the apocalypse. There are four horses of each color in Zechariah 6 pulling chariots. So the only correlation I can see with those horses, as I've told you, for the white horse and for the red horse, is that the color of the horses. But when we think about the famine and how the beast is going to be able to control all buying and spending, won't be able to buy or sell unless you have his number. It says, and he, in verse 16 of chapter 13, says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. It's going to control the food. I want to look at this, and then we may have to jump off here and take this up again tomorrow because I have to go to the doctor. I apologize for not managing my time better, but the old man was sleepy this morning. I didn't wake up till 6 o'clock. And you don't get this pretty by accident. You know, you have to rake and burn your hair, and you have to take a piece of sandpaper and wash your face. And brush your teeth with a wagon wheel. Oh, that's old Dan Clark. That wasn't old Jimmy Harris. Old Dan Clark was a mighty man who washed his face in a frying pan, combed his hair with a wagon wheel, and died with a toothache in his heel. Get out of the way, ever, old Dan Tucker. He's too late to get his supper. Supper's over and breakfast cooking. Old Dan Tucker stand there looking. Good old Dan Tucker. Behold, the black horse, famine, follows war, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. Now, I do have a good idea about these balances. That's how you weigh out the wheat. That's how you weigh out the food to somebody. People would go to the market and they would get an ephah. Well, it was a basket that's a little more than a bushel, and then you'd have people would have measures and weights to how much grain, how much food, how much oil. The balance is in his hand. It reminds me of Ezekiel when God is talking about the siege of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, prophesying, and how terrible the siege would be and how hard it would be to get anything to eat and how awful and unavoidable it was going to be, that there was nothing Israel could do. He had already said that, he had already told Jeremiah that he was going to wipe Jerusalem off like a plate, and there wasn't going to go back on it. no matter what happened. Matter of fact, he told Jeremiah to stop praying for Jerusalem. I am going to destroy it. And he did, through the Chaldean army. Now, if we look at chapter 4 of Ezekiel, God is describing to Ezekiel how bad the famine is going to be. And he says, is to show them how scarce food's going to be. God is going to make Ezekiel, who can't talk, God has made him dumb so he can't say nothing. He's got to show these things by demonstration, by pantomime, by charade. Verse 9 in chapter 4, it says, thou also take unto thee wheat and barley and beans and lentils and millet and fitches, put them in one vessel, and make thee a bread thereof, according to the number of days that thou shalt be upon thy side. 390 days shalt thou eat thereof. And thy meat thou shalt eat by weight, 20 shekels a day, not the money, but the weight of the money. And from time to time thou shalt eat it. And says, thou shalt drink water by measure, the sixth part of a hen. That wasn't like a cock-a-doodle-doo rooster's hen. It was a measurement. It's more than a quart. I mean, it was more. It was more than a gallon. It was a little less than 6 quarts. There's 4 quarts to a gallon. Then there was another quart, and then a part of a quart. It was a jug of measurement, a hen, H-I-N, not a chicken hen. I don't want to start talking about chickens. I get hungry. And you shall drink it. And then it talks down here that this is a deal to where he wanted them to know that he would break Jerusalem in two, and that they'd have to measure out the food that they ate. But see, at this time that Ezekiel wrote in Babylon, he was carried away in the first deportation. You know, Judah's still thriving. They're not under siege yet, but they're going to be. In verse 16, Ezekiel writes, moreover, God said unto me, Son of man, behold, I will break the staff of bread in Jerusalem, and they shall eat bread by weight and with care, and they shall drink water by measure in astonishment, that they may want bread and water, and be astonied one with another, and consume away in their iniquity. That's what happens in a famine. You consume away. I got to get off here. We will pick up the third seal tomorrow. I apologize for bad management of time. If I had someone to drive me, I would finish this program in the car and just take you with me. But I can't look at the screen and the road at the same time. And who knows, maybe later on in the week, that's how it will be. Somebody will be driving and I will be talking on my phone to you. We just don't know what's going to happen. I love you very much. We'll pick up with the third seal where we left off tomorrow morning.